Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, or whatever the case may be. My name is Marcus, and I am the host of the Black Brazil Today YouTube channel, as well as the blackbraziltoday.com blog, where I analyze Brazil from the perspective of race. So today I want to talk about a video that came across my timeline on Instagram, probably sometime at the end of the week, last week. And I say I definitely have to talk about this because it talks about a topic that I've covered often on the blog as well as this YouTube channel. Um, a lot of times Brazilians will travel overseas and they'll, in today's era of social media, they'll post their travels, their journeys, their experiences on their social media account, right? I see this all the time, so recently the actress Erika Januza visited Miami and she, some of the Brazilian media outlets covered her trip and she also posted videos on her Instagram channel. So I want to talk about a video that she recorded while she was in Miami. So today's video, visiting Miami, actress Erika Januza impressed by Black representation in the United States. She says, it was incredible to see the quantity of Black representation everywhere. Now, what's important about this is always this comparison of what country is less welcoming, less likely to represent the images of Black people in their media. And this is something that I've talked about for years, because for years there's always been a thing of Brazil says, it's United States that's the real racist country. Our country is not racist. But then when you make the comparisons of Black representation in various areas of society, you have to really ask yourself, okay, which country more likely will Black representation in certain areas? And I'm going to get into this and I'm going to prove my point because, this has been going on for a number of years. And Erika Januza saw this. So I just want to, I'm going to read this through what she saw with her own eyes. And then I'm going to give some context, right? So before I get into this video, make sure you like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, and click on the notification bell. With that said, let's get into this video. I'm going to put this in a little context before I get to what Erika Januza had to say. So these are some still pictures that Erika Januza took while she was in Miami. I don't know where she is. I don't know if that's the airport or if that's in a shopping mall. I can't really tell. But what I want to talk about, the Eurocentric advertising industry in Brazil. Brazil is, I'd say, official reports say about 53, 56% of Brazilians consider themselves to be, either preto or pardo, meaning Black or brown. And I would argue that it's probably higher than that because a lot of people who consider themselves white in Brazil probably wouldn't be white in other countries. So I've always said this, you never know it depends on what people are considering to be Black, brown, white, whatever. But I would say realistically, after what I've seen and living in Brazil, I would say the population of non-white is probably even bigger than the 56% that they're claiming now. Then I want to look at Black representation in Brazil versus the US. Now, I'm not going to go in depth into that. I'm just going to focus on one particular article that I've seen. And then I also want to acknowledge that Black representation has increased in Brazil. In terms of the advertising industry specifically, one of my partners sent me some pictures a few days ago, and he lives in Salvador, Bahia. Now, the last thing that I saw when I was in Sao Paulo, when I lived in Sao Paulo for 9 years up until 2021, that I moved back to Michigan. And I just remember in the last few years that I was in Sao Paulo, I saw significant changes. When I would go to a mall or you're just in the streets and you see big billboards, you see the display windows in shopping malls, advertising photos within the mall, and you see this all over the place. But in the first years that I lived in Sao Paulo, you rarely saw Black people represented in the ads. By the time I left Sao Paulo, I had to admit, I was impressed with how many more Black faces and Black bodies you saw in advertising campaigns inside the mall and, throughout Sao Paulo. So the pictures that my contact in Sao Paulo, in Salvador sent me, it kind of shows that, because even though it was still the majority of white people in the pictures that he sent me, it was markedly more Black people than I had really ever seen. This is true, I would say, for probably the rest of the country. Okay. So let's get into this for the day. I've talked about Erika Januza in, past videos and past articles, but just who is Erika Januza? This is a picture of Erika Januza right here. So who is she? Well, I remember the first time. I remember quite well when I saw Erika Januza for the first time. I couldn't find the pictures, but it was around 2012, shortly after I had arrived in Sao Paulo to live. And she did this fashion layout. I don't know if this website is still up now. I think it was called Paparazzo. And Brazilian actresses and models would do these photo spreads for that website, and they were really, they were, very well made, very well done, great photography, great lighting. At the time, I remember Erika Januza was wearing this long, straight weave. But I was like, who is this girl? I didn't know who she was at the time. So that was in August of 2012. The then model had done a photo shoot for the popular online site known as Paparazzo or something like that. I remember that Januza at the time was wearing a long, straight weave. It was probably a month or two later before I would see Januza again. This time, she was making her acting debut in the global TV network miniseries called Suburbia. I remember at that time that the show was being praised as groundbreaking due to its having a 90% Black cast, which was extremely rare in Brazil's media. This is Erika Januza in it was only 4 episodes, if I'm not mistaken. This was her debut as a professional actress. The series seemed to have had a lot of promise in the beginning, but after a few episodes, the show began to get numerous criticism from viewers who had grown weary of seeing the same old stereotypes of Afro-Brazilians presented on the small screen. You had the sexy Black women, you had the thugged out Black men, you saw these men who were strapped and, dope deals and all this type of thing. It didn't come off too well for the Black audience that expected much more. They hyped this thing as this is groundbreaking. There's a 90% Black cast in this series. So then the question is, what's more important between having 90% Black cast or the images that are presented, in the actual, series? People were disappointed with it. The series disappeared after 4 episodes, if I'm not mistaken. I was happy to see that Erika was able to rebound from that series and she began to construct what will become a successful career. Another photo of Erika here. Erika hails from the city of Contagem, which is located in metropolitan region of the city of Belo Horizonte, which is the biggest and capital city of the state of Minas Gerais. I love visiting Minas Gerais, been there about 4 or 5 times. A pretty woman, Erika decided to try her hand at modeling, even winning some of them. She won various modeling competitions along the way just during her journey as a model. But her journey as a model wasn't without its challenges, though. According to Erika, after having come in second place in one of those contests, she was called a horrible monkey by a woman, which shook her up a bit. I mean, remember, this is Brazil's favorite insult to dehumanize its Black citizens. I'm not going to focus on that, but just to point that out, you always hear about Black people in Brazil being called monkeys from its white or whiter citizens. It's in the news every day. Januza would go on to receive a call from the casting director of Brazil's top television network, Global. With the opportunity, Erika decided to pack her bags and move to Rio de Janeiro. Even with the disappointment that the short-lived series Suburbia would have, it would not have a second season. Erika learned a lot and gained experience with the program. Her time working on this series gained the young actress the confidence to decide to take on acting as a full-time job. These are just some pictures from a few of the novellas that she's appeared in recently. The actress would soon begin to win roles in Global TV's ever popular novellas, playing roles in soap operas such as Em Família, Sol Nascente, Amor de Mãe, and Outro Lado do Paraíso, which saw her playing the role of a judge. This was a huge step or an advance for Afro-Brazilian women that are rarely have the chance to play such roles in which they weren't maids, cleaning ladies, cooks, or sex pots. Januza herself, I don't know how many, I haven't counted how many, but she's played a maid or a cleaning lady and probably in a couple of novellas herself. Januza has also been featured prominently in Rio's famed samba school. She's been like a headlining person. People generally know who she is, even if they don't know what her name is. Her face has been recognizable, I'd say, since about 2012. So I guess she's been in the game for about 12 years now. Funny thing is, I didn't realize how quick the time flies. Erika Januza is going to be 40 years old next year. For me, it's kind of unbelievable. The actress has also been featured in advertising campaigns for brands such as Samsung, or how they say Samsungi in Brazil, Dior, and Louis Vuitton. In terms of her personal life, Januza has been connected to a few men, including soccer player Eduardo Alves, businessman Victor Evangelista, And the artist, they say Juan Nakamura, who is the son of a well-known actress and dancer. Januza turned heads with the relationship as Nakamura, uh, or I'm sorry, Nakamura was several years younger than her. I think he was like somewhere between 12, 13, 14 years younger than her. The actress also took flack for having been associated or having dated a number of white men. People, in this discussion of what they call palmitaging, this idea that black people have a predilection to choose white partners. And it's not always, a fair argument to make without knowing somebody's personal journey. Like, what if other black people weren't attracted to them? Black people never expressed interest in Erika Januza. I can't say. So I can't. It's difficult to what do you like? Name somebody as a palmitato, somebody who prefers to date white people, right? Without knowing that person's personal struggle in the dating market, right? Let's see what else we have here. Okay, so in recent years, the actress has declared her love for Jose Jr. He's the founder of the popular cultural and musical group known as Afro Reggae or Afro Reggae, if you saw it in English. This is Jose Jr. here. Jose was seen accompanying Januza on her recent trip to Miami, which is the subject of this post. Okay. Again, so this is the picture. Like I said, I don't know if she's in a mall or in an airport. You got a lot of shopping, stores inside of airports. But before I get into what Januza said in the video that she posted, first let me just put some context behind this. I don't remember what year this particular article is, but it says in Brazilian advertising or publicity, more than 90% of the figures that are prominent in the ads, 90% is represented by white people. Okay. This next ad or this next article says whites are still 78% of those represented in, announcements or ads in Brazil, with only 4% of those people portrayed being black women. Okay. What else do we have here? This article, broadening representation for the Brazilian black community. I wanted to highlight. So this article is by Federico Hoales. I don't know if he's Brazilian or not. But just saying, I'm no longer saying that Brazil, half of its population is black. I'm no longer saying that. I'm just saying there is a large black population in Brazil, but you won't know that from the media, film, television, and advertising, because as it says here, Brazilian society tends to be portrayed as almost entirely white in film, television, and advertising. I've talked about this in the past. I'm talking about today. I'm focusing more on advertising, but this applies in film, television, advertising, and several other areas of society in Brazil. Representation of black people grows in Brazilian advertising. In February of 2016, only 1% of Brazilian TV commercial protagonists were black. In February of 2019, that share had risen to 17%, that's an incredible growth in just a couple of years. Is there anything else here I want to? But that's mainly the stat that I wanted to point out. That's and that represents like the time period that I was talking about when I saw a market increase in black representation in advertising in Brazil. I saw this for myself. Okay. Representation of black people in Brazilian advertising grows. That's kind of like the same article that I just read, by this headline. Then you have, these are some of the articles you can find at the blackbraziltoday.com blog. And I've been talking about this for years. Brazilian advertising industry continues to value whiteness. 2020, whites still make up 90% of Brazilian advertising, but 3 recent commercials featuring Afro-Brazilians provide a glimmer of hope for racial diversity. In Brazilian advertising, more than 90% of protagonists continue to be white. They say advertising and race, their fear is that white women won't buy a product if the girl in the ad is black. That says a lot. Is there anything else in here that I want to highlight? Although there have been improvements, this is from 2019, Brazil's advertising industry still reinforces stereotypes about the black population. What else do we have? Okay, so these are just a few articles about Erika Januza. There was a time when she had cut her hair. I know she's experimented with weaves and wigs or whatever, but she did a big chop a few years ago. This is the article that I spoke about earlier. Actress Erika Januza faces backlash over her new love, this white guy. And the next article was just asking, why was Erika Januza criticized for dating a white man? Today I'm not talking about palmitaging or interracial, but these are just articles of which I've featured Erika Januza. The other thing I want to mention is that while I was still living in Sao Paulo, this was in 2019. I used to catch the subway home going to and from work. I used to work on Avenida Paulista. And it might have been for a few days. I remember going through this subway. I think it was the Consolação. It was, it was a long subway where you go from one side to the other to catch, the other trains inside the subway station. And I just remember these enormous posters and photos of these Black women that particular day for like a couple of days. I mean, these were enormous pictures. I was like, I had never seen so many images of Black women, in advertising. I mean, I'm talking about these pictures had to have been about 6, 7 feet tall, maybe. So that's what this article here. I did a story about Afro-Brazilian hair product ad captures the essence of Black women. And I was amazed. This is Erika Januza right here. She was one of the women featured for these beauty products, right? There's actually a YouTube video that featured these women and these, what is it? The product is called Salon Line. This is particularly for women who have what they call crespa encaixada, basically curly and kinky hair. And so these are just some of the ads that I saw online. The ads that I saw on the subway were much bigger. They were, like I said, could have been 6 or 7 feet high. You can see from the height of this woman standing in front of the photos inside the subway. Look how big these pictures are, right? This is Erika Januza right here. She was featured in the ad. And again, I was blown away. I had never seen the image of Black women in such big billboards. They weren't, indoor. They were actually like wallpaper inside the subway station. It was amazing. So it caught my attention. That's why I started taking pictures. I got those pictures somewhere, in my computer files, but I was just amazed because you just don't see Black women represented that way in everyday advertising in Brazil. The next thing I want to point out, just remembering some of the stores I remember passing through when I used to be in Sao Paulo. And these are some of the stores that I remember. Riachuelo. And as you can see, I'm looking at some of these pictures and you do see Black women in these pictures. So this is what I'm saying again, in the last decade to 15 years, advertising and representation of Black Brazilians has improved, quite a bit. You'll see the same with what they say, CNA, what you would call it in English, another big clothing store in Brazil. And you see Black women, Black men popping up in some of these ads. Because I'm telling you, 10 years ago, you just did not see them. This is for Renner, another popular clothing store in Brazil. And I'm saying, whereas all of these pictures before would have been all white women or mix of white men and white women, here you see Black women popping up in some of these ads. You see Black men. So I don't know if somebody's going to do a new study on this. We see that it has increased. I think the previous article I saw was just in 3 years, it had increased dramatically. So these are just a few of the stores that I wanted to feature. Marisa is another popular shopping store. You see Black women popping up in these ads like they didn't years ago. If I'm not mistaken, there's a huge Marisa shopping store on Avenida Paulista. I used to pass it every day, on my way to the subway. So anyway, that's what I wanted to point out. This is an article from some years ago. And what I wanted to point out here, what is this called? Racial and Ethnic Stereotypes in Brazilian Advertising by Carmen Silvia Moraes Rial. So I wanted to point out something that she wrote here, just talking about the whiteness of advertising in Brazil. She says, I became interested in reflecting upon the way different Brazilian races and ethnicities are represented in advertising after a conversation with a young and promising advertiser who works in the creative sector of McCann Erickson in Sao Paulo. On that occasion, at the end of the 80s, I was studying the process of globalization in advertising, and I was surprised when he revealed that the principal impediment to the importation of U.S. advertising text was not legal, but that U.S. advertisements included Blacks at a level that is unacceptable in Brazil. Did you hear this is what she said? An insider who worked in the publicity business, this was in the 80s, she said, they would not use these ads coming from the United States because what impeded them from using advertising coming from the United States and Brazil, because the U.S. advertisements use Blacks at a level that was unacceptable in Brazil. What does that tell you? It says that in the minds of the Brazilian, marketing, advertising, publicity, they can't have a large percentage of advertisements featuring Black people. I remember I used to just had conversation English with this black Brazilian guy. He was a director of this advertising firm in Sao Paulo. And we would have conversations about all types of stuff. And I just remember him telling me, like, Mark, this has happened more than a few times where I put together an ad and I had all types of different people in the ad. And the company that was, using my company for the advertising, he would just slowly say, take this guy out of the ad, take that guy out of the ad, take her out of the ad. He wouldn't say take the black person out of the ad, but all of the people that he would say take out of that ad were always black. This is just some inside information that he shared with me. So what this woman is saying here, it's equal to what that advertising director was telling me. It's just inside information. So are we supposed to believe that it's just an accident that, 78 to 90% of the advertisements in Brazilian, marketing campaigns feature white people? It's not an accident. So anyway, let's get back to what Erika Januza had to say. I'm going to just do an overdub on the video that she recorded from Miami, and then I'm going to come back. What if we'd always had black people in prominent places? Can you imagine a world where black people were praised for their beauty, for the color of their skin, and not attacked, reprimanded? We can and deserve to be everywhere. And recently I took a trip to Miami. It was beautiful. It was incredible to see there the quantity of black advertising, TV shows, and representation everywhere. In a country where the majority of its population is not black, the history of Brazil and the world has tried to construct our destiny. But we were made to occupy all places. Seeing so many advertisements out there with representation made me think about how children will grow up with a different reference from the one I had, at least. It's very important to be able to recognize yourself and understand that you're part of the whole of the world. I know that for us, everything seems more difficult and impossible, as if it were easy just to speak. I know it's difficult, but seeing it gives me hope, and using your power of speech to encourage other black men and women not to give up, that's giving hope. May this vision change and become more common and more common around here too. We can be, and we need to be. So anyway, you heard what Erika Januza had to say about what she saw in Miami. The whole point that she's making is that, and I recognize there's been improvements in terms of black representation in advertising, particularly in television and film over particularly the last 5 to 10 years. But apparently from what she saw, she still sees a lot more black representation in the United States. This is what she saw in Miami. So anyway, that's why I wanted to present this video today, because this is something that, black Brazilians are waking up and they're seeing we deserve to be represented in a country where we make up a large percentage of the population as a whole. So anyway, why don't you know what did you think about today's article? What did you think about what Erika Januza had to say? For those of you who've been to Brazil and the US, how do you see what she says? Is there validity in what she says, or do you think she's just, she's creating this out of nothing? I totally agree with what she's saying, because in the years that I lived in Brazil, I know, like, dang, Brazil is supposed to have more black people than the United States, but you would not know it according to its advertising, film, and television industry. Things have changed, but still a ways to go, as the saying goes. Anyway, what did you think about today's article, today's video? Definitely drop a comment in the comment section, like this video, share this video, consider subscribing to the channel. Click on the notification bell so that you'll know when I put up another video. And with that said, I'm going to end this video here and request that you all come back. Check out the next video that I post.